This is a quick demo of Katsed, our tool for analyzing BigQuery experiment data. So this would be for when you have an A/B testing tool that's already pushing events to GA4, and then you have the GA4 to BigQuery connection hooked up. So then you have all of your experiment data along with all your other analytics data in BigQuery. And normally the way to work with it would be, you have to learn SQL and create some rather complex queries and then, still get the data and put it somewhere or connect some sort of automations to it. So we built this to make that process as easy as possible. So you can find all of your experiments in BigQuery and get the results out without actually having to run any SQL yourself. So when you log in, you'll have a list of the projects that you have access to. And when you click into one of them, there's basically experiments and metrics. So we'll get into both of those, but we'll start with experiments. So this is going to be a list of all of the tests that have been found in BigQuery so far. So on our demo project here, you can see that we have a bunch of them already. And the idea is you can choose a date range, defaults to last 90 days, and then you can scan to see if there are any new experiments. So we can do that now. And you can see that this takes a little bit of time because round trips to BigQuery take a while. I mean, even if you're working in the BigQuery interface, when you actually execute a query, it's not super fast. So this tool has been built to minimize how often you need to do that, because the other issue is if you're processing a lot of data in BigQuery, it can get kind of expensive. So we have a couple of different caching layers involved here. So basically, you should only actually have to scan for data once in a while, especially when it's something like refreshing your experiment list. Like you'll know if there's a new experiment in there that you need to grab, right? So you don't need to be necessarily refreshing this data constantly. And there's another feature built in where if you sort of accidentally do the same query again, like say we've scanned for the data today and then I hit the scan button again, it's just going to hit the local cache. Like this is going to be aware that that's the exact same data already and that there's no need to go and ask BigQuery about it. So you can see here that it has found 3 new experiments. So there's, number 16, 15, and 14 that are new alongside the ones that we already knew about. So once you have a test in here, then you can start to, go and look at the details. So this is one that was already in there, and we have some data for it already, but we haven't named it yet. And so, experiment 25 isn't really all that helpful. So you can add the name that corresponds to what this experiment is actually called in your testing tool. If the way your testing tool works is that it actually pushes through the experiment name into GA4, then this will catch that as well. In this case, we're using a tool that doesn't do that. It just kind of pushes through an ID. So we'll just give it a name and save that. So now what we have is the metrics that we have already selected. And these are ones that we have already set up for this project. And then it's showing us, the variance, the users and conversion counts for the different variants, the conversion rate, and the effect size, and then the p-values for those variant, comparing each variant to control. So pretty straightforward, like this would actually take a pretty complex SQL query if you wanted to do this yourself in the BigQuery console. And this has just made it super easy. It's just pulling out all the data that you need, and you can put this into a report or whatever you want to do. The other option here is that it shows you the full date range that has been detected for the experiment. So in this case, March 13th to March 19th. And if you want, you can specify a more narrow date range, because sometimes you set an experiment live and it's doing like a live QA or something, or maybe you made changes to the experiment and you needed to restart it. So by default, it just grabs everything it finds, but you can kind of specify the actual date range that you want to analyze. Yeah, that's kind of the basics. Now, when it comes to metrics, you can click on over to the Manage Metrics screen here. And these are the ones that we've created already. So kind of general like SaaS metrics, like lead form submitted, application submitted, onboarding started. But what makes this kind of cool is it's grabbing all of the events that it sees in BigQuery already. So if you want to create a new one, we can do something kind of like, let's go with file downloads. There's not a lot of these, but say you wanted to track people downloading PDFs or something. So you can kind of give this a name for the metric, PDF downloads, and then go into the parameters for file download. And let's go file extension PDF. So you can create a new metric with those parameters. And now it's there right at the top. So if you go back into an experiment, now PDF downloads is available as another metric that you could choose to use to analyze experiments if you want. So that's kind of probably the best approach, because then you're guaranteed that you're actually working with real events that exist. But say you just already know your GA4 setup inside and out and you just want to do this a lot more quickly, you can just do some metric, type in the event name, some event manually, and then you can add parameters. You don't have to have parameters if you want, if you just want all of the versions of that event. But if there's kind of specific ones, then you can add as many of these as you want to narrow down that event to something more precise. And then same idea, you just go create metric, and there it is in the list. And now this is also available to all your experiments. I'm going to delete that one because we don't actually want that. So there you go. This is kind of, just an initial version, and we're just about ready to roll this out into a private beta. So we have some people who signed up for this already, but if you're interested in giving this a try, the first people in there to give us some feedback, it's not going to cost anything. And yeah, if you're interested, there'll be a link in this post with a sign-up form, and we're going to keep working on this and adding more features and turning your feedback into a product roadmap. So get in touch.